Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Today we're going to talk about a motorcycle which hopefully is wild, or on the other hand, could be something that you can just about tolerate. But it could also mean that it's just a little stripped down, which it also looks. Yeah, it looks a little bare.
That's a big introduction for an Interceptor, man.
All right, thank you very much for watching.
No, they have done some amount of work.
Oh,
There's a few things about this bike that I really did love.
okay.
Um,
That's a good start.
and given the last few bikes that they did, some of those things really did stand out.
Okay.
There are things that I was hoping for, like, this time they'll get it right. This product. No, wrong.
Okay.
Did not work. Some of the stuff should just have remained in California and should not have never come to India.
Wait. Where's the California connection with this?
Yeah, that's where they globally launched this bike.
Ah, okay.
And the name of the bike also comes from California.
Why is that? Because there are bears there. No, no, because you see those reels of bears breaking into people's
I wanted
houses
to
and
bring
stuff.
up bears in a number of contexts here. And you should know that bears hibernate, right? Which means they go to sleep and do absolutely nothing for 6 months of the year. There are a few things on this bike that never wake up. But just to give you a quick run of history, because I think enough people have covered the history enough times.
I'm sorry, I have no clue.
That's okay. A gentleman won a race in California on a Enfield.
Okay.
This gentleman was riding an Enfield at the Big Bear Run, which is the name of the race.
Oh,
You should look up the story. I'm sure you've heard the overview of the story 8 million times in 8 million Royal Enfield Bear 650 stories. But the story is worth looking at because this guy, he was a youngster, 16-year-old. He won the race.
oh, really?
But he passed 750 people to win the race.
Okay.
And he did break down in the middle. Everybody else went away. And then he caught up with them, passed them, and won the race anyway. Amazing story.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with the bike though.
What's the guy's name?
Eddie Mulder, I think.
They
Eddie like Van Halen and Mulder like Fox.
They should have actually named it the Mulder 650 then. I think that's the real beauty of
But I actually like the name Bear.
Okay.
You know, it's, what's her name? The lady in Hunger Games?
No idea, dude.
Jennifer
Lawrence?
Jennifer Lawrence.
Okay.
So it's Jennifer Lawrence's nephew's name. It's Bear. But when you hear a human called Bear, I don't know. Especially a child, like a 2-3-year-old called Bear. I like it.
Yeah.
But this is not a 2-3-year-old bear. This is a brand new bear, and this is the Bear 650. To talk about the bike, the engine is the same parallel twin. Minor tweaks to the engine finally. So horsepower is up in decimal points. But torque is up roughly 4.5 Newton meters, which represents an 8% change. And Royal Enfield is saying it's not just peak torque, the entire torque curve is higher. One of the reasons they're crediting is the fact that this doesn't have the 2 exhaust anymore. It has a 2-into-1 single-sided exhaust. So it doesn't stick out on both sides. And this exhaust is far less likely to get scratched in a parking lot when you leave it in a crowded place like used to happen with the other 650s. No word on if this exhaust is going back to any of the other 650s or not. Technically, it's the same engine, so in theory, you should be able to buy it and fix it back if you feel like it. But the tuning has changed, so be careful with that. No other fundamental mechanical changes. Gearing, wearing, everything remains more or less in the same zone. And again, Royal Enfield does the same thing where the rear tire has changed, but the circumference is more or less the same as the Interceptor, so the net gearing is the same.
So the rim size has gone down to
It's a 19 front and a 17 rear, whereas the Interceptor is a 18.
Yeah.
In the process, they've also given it more suspension. And it's literally more suspension because it doesn't do much. So at the back, the Interceptor used to have 90 millimeters of travel, 88. This one has 113 or 14 or something like that. I put the exact numbers. And the front now has 130 millimeters of travel, whereas it used to have some 110 or something like that.
Okay, so this is because it's a scrambler now?
So essentially the idea was that Eddie's story is a desert racing kind of story. And the desert racer is a kind of very specific kind of scrambler. And the idea was, I think Royal Enfield is now at a stage where they're trying to say, instead of having Classic 350 be the end all and be all of the volume game, can we do lots of little niches that will play well in the global market? And that will give Indian enthusiasts a choice also. Royal Enfield doesn't really like to do mechanical variations, which is to me the flaw in this story, where all the bikes have the same engine, they more or less have the same gearing, and therefore they all have the same kind of nature. But I think this is the idea. So if you look at what is a classic 650 going to be versus what the Interceptor 650 is today, it's not going to be much of a difference. And that's kind of the tweaking, tuning is going on. To their credit, the Bear 650 looks spectacularly proportionate and good. All 4 color schemes are good looking color schemes. They all have the right retro nature. They're modern without being either too jazzy or just too kishy. They look good. So I like what the Bear represents visually. And if you're buying the Bear for what it looks like and you're willing to ignore all the rest of it, I would not grudge you. But if you're planning to buy the Bear first as an off-roader, don't even think about it. Okay, it's 200 plus 216 kilos and it's 2 kilos lighter than an Interceptor, which means absolutely nothing.
That's what I was gonna. Hey, what? Only 2 kilos?
Yeah.
After ditching the twin exhausts?
Yeah. Clearly one side was khali. No, I'm joking. No,
one of them might be a dummy. Check on your bike.
No. So the thing is that it looks like it's a much smaller exhaust unit. But the collector box has to go under and across the bike just like it does on all the single-sided units. It's not like physically it's a significantly smaller exhaust.
2 kilos is still a shock, man.
Yeah. So they've raised the bike's ground clearance. The seat height is up to, I think, 830. So there will be a few people who will find the Bear difficult to handle in terms of feet will not go down naturally.
I did sit on it actually.
And what did you think?
I automatically realized I had no context of what the bike is in terms of the changes and what it is in terms of seat height, etc. But I got on and I immediately felt that the seat height was high.
Yeah, so you'll have to ride it with 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot on the pegs.
I could actually get
just about 2 feet down.
I could get that. I could manage both feet down without thinking too much about it. But the thought in the background was that, if you take this off-road, then I do have a question about this because A, it's a heavy bike.
No, I'll tell you how to take this bike off-road. Go up to where the trail begins, park it. And then take something more reasonable like a Scrambler 400X or something.
But I'll tell you, okay, now that we're talking about this, I thought we'll bring it up later because that was my only interaction with the Bear. The 3 things I noticed on it in the time that I spent with it was 1, that the seat is higher. 2, I really liked in terms of the design. They have that racing plate on the side, right? The number plate.
That's Eddie's number plate. That's his race number, 249.
Oh, nice.
So we have the top model. The one that you're seeing is the top model. It's the most expensive one. And it's like the special edition because it has Eddie's number on it.
Okay. Because the way it's integrated, the side panel has
that looks really good.
Yeah, it's really nicely done. Yeah. So whatever little bit of changes are there, the contrast color for the frame, that is that minty green kind of thing. It's nice. It feels fresh.
I agree.
So I enjoyed that. But the other thing I noticed was that the suspension, the rear is hard. Yeah. It's like it's not, the front and rear not in tune at least.
So I'm increasingly thinking that Royal Enfield is doing 2 things simultaneously with their recent suspension setups, exceptions being Himalayan. Okay, 1, I think they're seeing a vision of Indian roads that we can't see, so we can't appreciate what they're up to. And when our roads get amazing, the suspension for the amazing roads is already on like a series of Royal Enfields. Think about it, right? If
what do you mean?
If we were to wave a magic wand and all the roads in Mumbai just became California good, and suddenly the Super Meteor is a great bike, great cruiser to have. The Shotgun is amazing to have. It even handles. The Bear will be just spectacularly good, right? I think they're seeing a vision of our country that we can't see yet.
I was thinking of the Bear when I felt that, you can do a static test for suspension and you should be able to feel the front and rear in phase when you're on the pegs. So I was doing that and the rear was so firm. I thought, maybe they've done this so that you can land it better on the rear wheel.
I landed it off a couple of speed breakers today. I rode 250 kilometers in the morning today, just over 1 tankful. And when I land from a speed breaker, it makes my thighs work as suspension.
Oh, man.
Because it ain't doing nothing.
Oh, even then?
It ain't doing nothing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's super stiff.
Okay,
so the California stories were saying that it's a little bit on the stiff side. And when somebody goes to Europe, America, rides canyons and comes back and said it feels a little stiff, I think you should just automatically take that as like a massive red flag saying, okay, bro, this is just not going to work here. Okay, so I rode 250 kilometers today. I see what this bike could have been, but honestly, I have suffered. Okay. And the test route I use is very good. I'm not going to reveal the details with you because it's a test route. You will not enjoy riding it. But it's 100 kilometers of various kinds of rippled concrete. and the other 150 kilometers is brilliant, well-surfaced twisties. And it leaves the city, comes back into the city, so I get the full experience. And that 100 odd kilometers of rippled tarmac, concrete, I would not want to do it on a Bear.
Alrighty then. So
Okay,
this,
I'm like the entire time like this.
Hmm.
It does not absorb anything. Now, and I tried going faster and hitting it more load. It will do that if you hit a big bump. That it knows what to do.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say that the edge of the concrete slab has broken and now there is a fairly fair-sized pothole. You can hit that at pace. This bike is robust. Nothing will break. You will barely feel it. Barely feel it. Yeah. Right? But if you slow down enough and if you do what a normal human being would do, which is try and brake a little bit, good luck. The suspension will say, deal with this.
Let's test your spine.
Yeah, and I'll come back to why I think the suspension setups is going like this, because I have an inference that I have made from some conversations I had. Okay. We'll come back to this. So fundamentally, engine change, I told you. The chassis is basically the same. 2 or 3 small tweaks. One, in a couple of places, I heard that the bracing around the steering head has been changed a little bit to give it more stiffness. In most other stories, I didn't hear about it, so I'm not sure, but it feels like they've done something there. But the passenger subframe has been changed slightly, and it kicks up at the end like a traditional scrambler would. So it's not technically the exact same frame as an Interceptor, but for all practical purposes, they haven't done much.
Understood.
In the process, ground clearance is up, seat height is up. The seat is fantastic. It doesn't look like much in terms of, it's not like very shapely seat. It's like a very homemade desert racer kind of seat, but it is a comfortable seat. Today I was on the bike almost 4 hours and the aches and pains barely started when I rolled back into the office, which is awesome. I have not ridden this good a seat on a Royal Enfield motorcycle in a long time. Last, I think, would be the Bullet and the Classic 350s.
Alright.
So very good seat, and this is the stock seat. I don't think this is the touring seat. You don't need to worry about the seat at all. Okay. Riding position, it could have been brilliant. Both the foot pegs mess with you a little bit, but the handlebar is in a great position.
That's the usual Interceptor thingy, right?
No, they've done a few things here. Okay. So on the Bear, you've got off-road style pegs with rubber inserts. Yeah. So the gear lever compensates for that by coming out and taking a turn. But that turn is what I found myself using to shift, because I basically never reached for the toe shifter at all because that was in the way of the boot. You know, so there's a kink like this, and instead of hitting this, I'm hitting the turn itself, and I'm turning on the, I don't actually need the toe shifter. So if I were to take a pair of tin snips and just cut the actual shifter off, I'd totally be making full gear changes on this bike without noticing. Similarly, on the other side, if you sit with the aggressive riding position that I do, with the balls of your feet on the peg and all the way up, no stress. But if you want to sit a little bit more flat, for some reason there is a air gap this big between the rear master cylinder, not master cylinder, the brake servo. So between the brake servo and the frame, there's that much of an air gap, and then there is a cap around it. Yeah. So this is where your heel would normally go. So your foot is always turned into the motorcycle like this if it's flat. So I rode most of the mileage today with my foot on top of the guard that sits around the brake servo. Not uncomfortable, but I don't know why it had to be done given the fact that there is an air gap on the other side. Right? For some reason, they didn't tuck that thing in, and that's the issue. Okay. But if you forget...
I'm just going to break that down if you didn't get it. If you sit like this, I mean, with your feet on the foot peg, the balls of your feet on the foot peg, there's something protruding outwards. So you end up keeping your heels on top of that. And if your feet are further down in a more flat position, then it's pushing your right foot out like this.
Yeah, your ankle has to stay out.
Yeah, so like that. So it's just strange.
Yeah. So it's a... But if you ignore the feet for a minute, the way you plug into the motorcycle, the way the seat feels, the way you're wide-chested, I really, really like the riding position. Okay. And you've got the steel brace on the handlebar, which of course some of you will put like a brace pad on and stuff, whether you go off-roading or not. It works. It's got the tripper dash, as they call it, which is the TFT display that has come from the Himalayan. It has this standard LED headlight, which means I have not ridden this motorcycle in the night, but honestly, this headlight has not done anything on any of the motorcycles we've tested yet. So there'll be nothing to write home about on that front. They still have this weird switch gear. So I had to honk at everybody because I just could not get used to flashing them. Because to me, this is how I flash on the switches. This I'm not used to doing. And then I discovered that it has a dual tone horn, which is, I don't honk enough to remember whether the Interceptor, Himalayan, etc. have dual tone horns or not, but for whatever it's worth, the Bear certainly does. Okay. So if you ignore the suspension for a minute, I really enjoyed the feel of this motorcycle. It's a tall feeling motorcycle. It's a substantial feeling motorcycle, and it does have a commanding riding position because you're sitting a little bit higher. So you do see over the cars, you see the gaps in traffic better. It feels really good. And this is just such a beautiful engine because it's an effortless engine. It is smooth. It has a nice voice. And you can just do this in any gear and it just passes whatever you're looking at. There were empty stretches today on the testing route where I was sitting at 110 just to see, does it feel strained? No. Okay, 130? No. Slow it down to 60 in the same gear.
So despite the slight change of tune, the character as in the smoothness and all of it is
the only
same.
the only thing I think versus the Interceptor, this feels even lighter on its feet. So when you do this, it's just like, oh yeah, easy man, easy.
Oh, nice.
And because the handlebars are a little bit wider, steering's a little bit easier. The clutch feels a lot lighter than I remember the Interceptor being. So this is a very lightweight motorcycle to operate, although you'll never forget that this is a heavy motorcycle that you're on top of, right? It's a very weird thing to say, but you're aware intimately that this is a heavy thing, but you don't seem to put an effort to make the heavy thing do the stuff that you want to.
Right.
So my big three issues with this motorcycle literally are the brakes, the tires, and the suspension.
Oh shucks, I was just going to ask you about that.
That's the issue. So the brakes, there's no functional defect, but I can't feel a thing. So I'm relying on ABS and whatever skill I have to say, yeah, I think I can manage and stop it in that much time because I can't feel what the brakes are doing. Tires, similarly, these are MRFs, which look exactly like the Pirelli STRs, but the STRs have bigger blocks, as in deeper blocks. These are much flatter. So they feel like regular road tires, but they're not feedbacky. So you can't really feel your contact patches. So it's a lot of faith. And because I use this test route a lot, I know this road a lot. So I have faith that I know what I'm doing here. But can I tell you from feedback saying, I had 20% grip left there, 10% grip left there, 50%? No, I can't feel it. One. Two, gravel, it spins and it spins way too early for my liking. So you have to be super cautious on gravel. At first, I thought it was the torque because there is a lot of torque. It's a light feeling throttle. So you roll on, maybe you've overdone it. But every single time I hit a gravel patch on tarmac, not a trail, every time it went there, it would immediately start spinning. So I don't think the blocks are big enough to dig in, or that's not the job of this tire. It's just visually.
That sounds like rubber actually more than anything else.
Yeah, and the compound is nowhere close to an STR in terms of grip and feel, because an STR just feels like a fantastic road tire until you hit the dirt when it is awesome.
Because I saw the tire. I mean, I understand what you're saying. The STRs are much deeper. The grooves are far deeper. I mean, it's thicker.
Yeah.
In this, it doesn't look like that at all. But that's still enough to cut through the gravel that you'd see on a road typically.
But this one is just spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hit 2 long wet patches today. One is under a dam, so that patch is always wet, which is what I like about this route. There's always a wet patch there. Immediately, I'm spinning and slightly slidey, and I have to go back off the throttle. Like, you can't do anything. Wow. And then one village that you pass, you come out of the village when water tanker had just gone and there was like water on the road. Open the throttle, you're spinning. So I am not very convinced that this is a great tire. And if Royal Enfield has done the same thing they did with the Gorilla, where the tire has a job to do in terms of the design and not really a lot to do with the real world, then this is another one of those. In the dry, I didn't have a problem as long as I was willing to trust this tire. If you didn't have that faith that, yeah, I think it'll be okay, then I don't know that you'd be able to push this bike because it doesn't give you much feedback. And the third thing is the suspension, which basically absorbs nothing.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, the one thing with the Interceptor, and which was slightly better on the Continental, was that, at higher speeds, like 110, 120 and all, you find that it would do a slight weave. The front end was too sharp. Now that the tires pushed it up a bit, does it feel cleaner then?
What will happen though is when you're, say, going down off ramp on a flyover with a lot of expansion joints, this suspension can't do anything.
Skips. Huh?
Yeah. You're in the air. Okay. You have to learn that it will come up in the air. And therefore, a little bit of floaty handlebar and all of this drama is going to happen. You get used to it, okay? It's very dramatic. I don't think it's super dangerous. It is dramatic. But yeah, if you're going up a road where the turns have bumps and lumps and stuff in the middle.
How many kilos again?
216. I would back off. This is not a great bike to do this with. And I'm telling you this, if you take something with far more sophisticated suspension today, which is all the way from a 400X Scrambler, 390 Duke, 401 Swart Pillion, etc., they would all handle these situations without you thinking about it. And this bike is just way too stiff to do any of this. So I see why you'd get it. I see that if you got it, you'd get a great seat, a great riding position, something awesome to look at and stuff. But will you be happy to own this bike? The more you want to ride, the more you want to actually ride, the more I think you'll be upset with it.
So who would you recommend this to?
Somebody in California. Because if the roads are good, look, the Bear has no issues if the roads are good. I mean, in that sense, Royal Enfield's made the right bike, but our contractors don't know how to make the right roads. What?
Even in California, why would I pick this over a Continental?
So look, if you're choosing between a Continental or Bear, you're just not clear what kind of bike you'd like to own. Because a Continental is a cafe racer.
Yeah.
And a cafe racer and a street scrambler are two completely different beasts in terms of what would you like to look at, right? I don't see
because both are bikes you buy primarily for the personality of them rather than you're not going to go racing with a cafe racer. Neither are you going to go scrambling on a Bear 650.
No, absolutely. But basically, you're saying that would you prefer red or green? I don't think it. How do you choose between red and green? I mean, you prefer red.
So you're saying that it is just a question of taste, right? That's about it.
Yeah. Because functionally, this bike does nothing that the Interceptor won't do better. Okay, now think about this. Okay, the Interceptor has terrible suspension for its weight, for what it is supposed to be able to do. It's way too soft. It gets into wallows too early, etc. Blah blah blah. I'd rather have that than a motorcycle that is so stiff that is beating the crap out of you the whole time. Right? So if I had to do this 250-kilometer again, and you gave me the option of an Interceptor, which might be in hardware terms an inferior bike, it has less ground clearance, it has less suspension travel, blah blah blah. I'd just come back having gone maybe slower but more comfortable at least.
So, okay, the reason why I asked you that question in specific was because for me, the default is the Interceptor.
Yeah, right? Still is. Nothing has changed.
You buy the Conti because you want a slightly different mood.
Correct.
And it's the same thing with this bike as far as I can see. And this is something we always do with products when we're trying to make sense of them.
Correct.
It's like you play with the levers. So levers is price, which we've not spoken about, we'll get to. But let's say performance, let's say comfort, features, whatever. You know, you move the levers around and see at what point do you get excited or you get put off by something.
Correct.
Right? Now, in this bike's case, it just feels like, and no offense meant here, but it feels like for whatever reason, they were the choice of people who wanted to build custom bikes, they would go to REs. And all these bikes seem like that because they are aesthetically
awesome.
Changed.
Yeah.
They're aesthetically great. And in that regard, they are better than any custom job that we would do.
Yeah.
But they are not better as motorcycles than any job we would do with them because they're effectively the same.
Yeah. And think about it like this. Okay, I was thinking about this on the way back, on the bike. There's a website called Bike Exif, which most of us are aware of. If you're not aware of, go to Bike Exif. It's a great website, and they focus on custom motorcycles. I'm going to say pick 5.
Correct.
Any 5. Now, I want you to look at that motorcycle, and I know your jaw will slacken and you'll be like, man, that is so good looking, right? And you'll recognize some of the names as repetitively awesome at it. Like there was a time when Deus was always in the thing. You'll see El Solitario, etc., etc. Look at those bikes. Now, I want you to close your eyes and imagine living with the damn thing. Whatever you're looking at. I want you to imagine going to work on that thing. I want you to imagine going for a tour on that thing. I want you to go think about going touring with a partner, a pillion, luggage on any one of those things, and you'll see the problem. As long as you're looking at it, the bikes are just heartbreakingly beautiful. And that's whether it's a cruiser, whether it's a tracker, whether it's a scrambler, whether it's a endurance race replica, they all look gorgeous. And the moment you say, where will my office bag go? Those bikes stop working.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of these Royal Enfields are becoming like that, which leads you to the conclusion that the 8-year-old Interceptor still is the default 650 twin to buy from this company. And maybe that will change when the classic 650 comes out, if its suspension is not in this sticker.
And that's what, for me, it's like, I don't know what the price is. But now, even if the price from that, whatever it is.
What do you think the price is, Kartikeya? To give you a reference point, the most expensive Interceptor is about 3,30,000 ex-showroom.
This will be 3,38,000.
That's where it starts.
What?
So you're right. But 8,000, the number you said, is the delta between the most expensive Interceptor and the least expensive Bear.
Okay.
And then there's another 29,000 rupees more that you could spend on this bike as stock. And I think that bike is the one that you'll see in the pictures, the one with the 249 on it.
Damn.
Right?
No, I mean, for me, the thought was that it would be 8-10,000 bucks more. And my argument was, hey man, put in another 20-25K and give it proper suspension. And then I've got like this thing going on for the bike then.
But I think that is still doable.
But they've not done it.
No, you can do it. No, you buy the cheap one. You buy the cheapest Bear. That's 338. And then you put the 25,000. So by the time you get to the...
What suspension will you put?
YSS.
My point is, what are they doing?
Who?
It's not a custom shop, no?
Thank you for asking what Royal Enfield is doing with the suspension, because I have a theory.
Okay, go.
So Royal Enfield used to develop their motorcycles in Chennai before the UKTC, the United Kingdom Technical Centre, happened. And those suspension units were whatever they were. They were reasonably good. And they fit our country. Then they went to the UKTC and they were using Bruntingthorpe as the development ground, which is the airfield associated with the building, as it were. And they would take time from there and whatever. I understand that Bruntingthorpe became quite busy because somebody who does used vehicles or leased vehicles or something like that started to use that as a parking lot. Okay. And they were paying more to park than for the testing. Okay. So it became more and more difficult for them to use it. So they were looking for other places to do the testing. During this phase also, the motorcycles were primarily being developed at UK and India. And I think the suspension setups worked. Were they awesome at this point? No. But I think the Interceptor, for example, comes from this duration. Then at some point, they started going to a place called IDIADA in Spain, which is a proving ground, which is a certification agency, etc. Royal Enfield claims to have a small office there, which they do. Effectively, it's a garage out of which the engineers can work so that as the prototypes are being cycled through and testing is happening, logging those data, fixing what's broken, updating new equipment and sending them out for testing. All of that happens out of that little garage office. And IDIADA is next door, so you can go and finish testing and certification process there. It's since the IDIADA talks started that these super stiff setups have started to happen too. The exception is the Himalayan. Because the Himalayan is part of the Spanish...
I've got an IDIADA story for you as well.
One second. The Himalayan is part of the Spanish cycle, but the Himalayan has enormous suspension travel. If you have that much suspension travel and then get it wrong, then you should just stop. Suspension is beyond my capacity. I need to outsource this.
You know what? First and foremost, UK does not have good roads anymore. Neither does the US. They're all suffering with infrastructure that's failing. And last time also that I was in UK, I was surprised that you were going through potholes and stuff. And even if your roads are great, it's your job to factor in bad roads. And there's no two ways about that.
Kartik, your argument is moot.
Why?
94% of their bikes are sold here. What difference does it make what the other 6% does?
Exactly. I mean, the IDIADA test track has, and that's why I said I have an IDIADA story for you as well. The test track has different surfaces for you to go and do this. There are specially designed sections which have speed breakers and potholes and all of that, which are not as bad as our potholes. But the point is they're there.
Okay, so this is the part where I'm obviously lying to you, but the conclusion that you're going to reach from what I'm telling you is the correct one. I have to lie to you because I can't tell it to you any other way, okay? What if...
Lie to me, Shumi.
What if there is a part of the certification procedure that cannot be met unless your suspension is this kind of setup? And therefore, whether they are aware of the problem, not aware of the problem, they know that this is going to be an issue, not going to be an issue, the only way they'll get that certification is to have a suspension setup that's stiff. Which then begs the question, why is a company this large and this well off not able to do anything other than globalized suspension setups?
Okay, don't lie to me, Shumi. Can you just say what it is?
What if there is a certification clause in there that only passes bikes when they do stuff like this? And if it's on a budget, and if the suspension's on a budget and you have a time constraint, etc., then this is the fastest way to get through it.
You're talking about internal?
I'm just lying to you the whole time. I am not saying anything at all. And it gets worse. I will also tell you this. I met Claudio Domenicali, Ducati, and I asked him, why do you insist on selling radar in India? He says, what's wrong with radar in India? I said, the radar doesn't work in India. So my non-radar Ducati Multistrada 1200 had cruise control, which on the way to Bengaluru, which is 1,000 kilometers of reasonably empty traffic in daylight, I would use a lot. But with the radar, because the calibrations don't work, I can't actually use radar, and therefore now I've lost the ability to use cruise control. Why wouldn't you sell me the top model with the electronic suspension, which I so love? Why wouldn't you sell it to me in India without radar? Or why wouldn't you do an India calibration? And Claudio said, Ducati only makes global spec motorcycles. We don't do regional specialization. The factory may have the option of supplying radar or non-radar electronic suspension models. I am not aware of the details. But is there a India-specific radar calibration? There isn't. Is there an India-specific suspension? There isn't. And the only thing they would do for Southeast Asia is the low accessory seat would be the standard seat in Asia, and you'd buy the middle and high as accessories. Whereas in Europe, the middle would be the standard seat. You'd buy the low or high as accessories. This is the amount of market-specific customization that Ducati, for example, is willing to do. And I'm increasingly willing to believe that Royal Enfield has an enormous ambition to be a globally massive, relevant player. But after all these years of effort, 90% of their products are still being sold in India. But if they need to be seen as a global manufacturer, one of the trade-offs they've made is they're looking for this certification. Again, of course, I'm lying to you. They're looking for this certification. And this certification leads to this result, which is suboptimal for 90% of their customers, but they don't seem to have a choice about it. Now you're shaking your head. Now tell me what you think.
Nothing. I think we're coming back to the unit economics and EBITDA story. And it...
Yeah. And if you look at I'm going to call it the slide because I can't classify it any other way. We did suboptimal switchgear, which defeats ergonomics, but we did it to all the bikes. We went from very nice bulb headlights to a very suboptimal LED headlight. We did the Himalayan and we said cruise control, no, we don't need it. We did a 40 bhp fast engine and we said, we don't think it needs traction control. Like today on the Bear, I would have loved to have traction control. I would have spun up a lot less and a lot more places. I'd just been happier to go a little bit quicker.
Imagine I didn't even think about asking you about traction control.
Yeah.
It didn't even pop up in my frame of reference.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We are willing to run the same motorcycle with known flaws for now, what, 8 years of the Interceptor? 6 years, 6 or 7 years of the Interceptor.
And you know, the irony is, I'm sorry, but Royal Enfields back then, at a time when they were not a mass thing, right? They were for a certain kind of audience. And there were people opting to buy a bike which was much larger in displacement, which meant fuel efficiency was going to be crap compared to anything else at that time on the market. Reliability was rubbish, and it was a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
So it made no sense, but people went towards them, and they were extremely... what shall we say?
A thrill to have them. There was a lot of desire and aspiration involved.
And today I feel that for that desire is being
encashed. Encashed.
Bled.
Yeah.
Because now that you've got to this base level, which is a good hygiene level, from there on it's just...
Yeah, it's like, I feel like Himalayan is an exception. We're going to leave the Himalayan out of this.
Himalayan is, yeah.
We're going to leave the classic and Bullet 350s out of this because they are so tied to what this company has been up to that they can't really do anything, and they nailed what little they needed to do with those two machines. But somebody in this office was asking me in the morning today, somebody who doesn't really track motorcycles, they're saying, so what Royal Enfield products are you willing to recommend? And I am shocked at how short that list is.
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to recommend you a classic and a Bullet 350 if you're in that right temperament. Meteor 350 at a stretch. Interceptor 650 is your best bet for the 650 twin, and it has suboptimal suspension, but it's reasonably cheap to buy, so you'll upgrade it and move on with it. And the Himalayan.
Done.
One product per platform effectively. 3 platforms, 3 products effectively. That's not a good hit ratio. And if you think about what's going on, again you leave the Himalayan out of this. All of their bikes look a certain way and do very little. Right? Cafe Racer as a format, you can't do a lot with it. It's a very difficult format to use for more than looking good. I'm not saying you can't do it. Some of you are super hardcore, you love your Contis. I'm not dissing you at all. I'm just saying to sit like this every single day to do everything that you normally do with a motorcycle, it's a difficult choice to make for a large group of people.
Yeah.
The Bear, it should have been so easy to ride every day because it does have the suspension travel required to do it. It does have the ground clearance to do it, but the suspension is so stiff that it's going to be difficult to live with. It's the same with the Super Meteor, which is on the verge of being a fantastic cruiser. It's the same with the Shotgun. It's the same with the Hunter. And they all have singular issues. Rear suspension, too stiff.
And headlight.
Look, to me, the LED headlight is still, yeah, I'll put two I'll put two auxes, and some police will catch me periodically, and I will explain to them that, look, the headlight is useless, what do I do? Fair enough. I can work around that. Suspension is just, at least give me basic working suspension. And you know how to do it. Just look at the Himalayan. Nothing like the Himalayan exists.
You know, it's funny. When he said that, I was also just going to jump in and you should just look at but the two bikes that we chose are different. I was going to say classic. Because the classic is not meant to be an off-roady or anything kind of motorcycle.
But it works.
But it works so good.
Yeah.
It is so good.
And the Bullet has a slightly more comfortable seat. It visually is obviously different, but the Bullet seat is slightly more comfortable. If anything, the Bullet's even more plush feeling. And to me, Himalayan, it's still on a budget. It has enormous suspension travel, but the level of control on that suspension, my God. And I said when Triumph brought out the Scrambler 400X, that to me was the benchmark of what a Scrambler should be able to do, apart from the fact that it can't get beyond 110 without complaining, apart from that one aspect. Nothing has changed. If I were looking for a Scrambler today, I would still go straight back to a 400X. I'd save about ₹1,00,000 in the process. I'm good.
I want to paint a picture to you. Imagine sitting on the Bear, like he said, big, wide stance. You're sitting tall with a nice pulse from that engine, smooth performance, and you're going down this road. And instead of feeling that bumpiness, which is going to make you feel jittery, and this, instead you have this creamy softness about it with the long travel suspension soaking up those undulations nicely. Imagine that bike almost floating, and then the big stuff is dealt with it just as impressively. Man, that vision, well, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about that instead of thinking about what it actually is right now.
And the Himalayan does that every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Oh.
Like, I know that this test route on a Himalayan, I won't feel a thing. I know everything because the thing is so good with feedback.
Yeah.
But I won't feel a thing. That 100 kilometers of rippled concrete.
Okay. Summary? Or do we have something more?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We were talking today about the Bear 650, which is another iteration of the.
Did you say hibernation? No, iteration. I'm so sorry.
It is likely to go into hibernation in this office, at least after this conversation. But the Bear 650 is an iteration of the 650 platform, another one of them. And in this one, it's more minimalist. It's based on the idea of a motorcycle that was ridden by a 16-year-old from California at a race which is called the Great Bear.
The Big Bear Run.
Okay, sorry, the Big Bear Run. And he won it as a 16-year-old, overtaking some 750 participants at that time. And this is a way long back kind of story. And which is why the motorcycle that Shumi is riding, which is the top spec one, has a plate on the side, which is the racing plate. And that has his number on it. His name was Mulder. Something Mulder. Lawrence Mulder. No? Eddie Mulder. Sorry.
Eddie Van Halen and Fox Mulder.
Okay, so Eddie Mulder. So we thought that it could have been either named Eddie 650 or Mulder 650. That would have been better instead of Bear 650. Anyways, moving on to the motorcycle. The motorcycle is effectively the Interceptor. The front half of it, as the chassis is supposedly beefed up a bit because this is meant to be kind of like a scrambler. The Great Bear Run.
Yeah. Big Bear Run.
Okay, Big Bear Run. Yeah, whatever. It was.
We don't know if the bear was great or not. We know that the bear was big.
So the bear was big, and okay, this bear is tall, not big, but the Big Bear Run was an off-road
like decades ago. Nobody knows what the hell this thing is. This is a story.
Oh, really? It's a scrambler style motorcycle, and therefore it has certain changes to it, which is why if there is any bracing would make sense. Also keep in mind that the tires are different. The front is a 19 instead of a 18, so the stance of the motorcycle has changed. How the weight sits, the rear is a 17 and instead of a 18 again, and the rear subframe is a bit different. It's slightly kicked up to give it a more scramblery feel, and the big part about the scramblery stance is of course the tires, which are MRFs, but they look like the Pirelli STRs, but they're not as deep in terms of the tread depth. So
if MRF makes a version of the STR, can we just call it like the MTR tire? Like a full masala story? Can we?
So, carrying on. This has nothing to do with the... Anyways. So the tires, we'll carry on from there. the thing Shumi found, and we'll get that out of the way. The things that he didn't like about the bike straight away are the things, the tires, because he didn't get enough grip and feedback from them, even on slightly gravelly roads, which is like on tarmac, he didn't take it off road. And even in the wet, there are regular patches on the route that he rides. So it's like for like kind of situation. It's not that, it's suddenly it's rained and so therefore it's slippery over there or something of that sort. It's a condition he deals with on a regular basis, and it felt weird in that it didn't give him enough confidence. So the tires didn't work. The suspension, it has more travel rear and front. It's gone from 80 mm.
It has more hard wear.
Good one, good one. So it's gone from 80 at the rear to 100 something.
88 to 110 at the back, and something like 110 to 130 at the front.
Okay, about 20 mm up on both ends, which also means that it has more ground clearance. It also means the seat height is higher, and that's something you can feel. At 5 feet 6 inches, when I was sitting on it, I could get my feet down, but that was kind of, tiptoe types, which means off-road. It will be a challenge considering it's a heavy motorcycle, but this is not really a motorcycle you're going to take off-road because it is big and heavy.
Also because it's a street scrambler at best. This is not an off-road motorcycle.
And the suspension, while it felt hard at standstill, Shumi said that even when he was jumping it off of speed breakers, it still felt hard. What he said was, I used my legs to cushion the fall, the landing.
I didn't do it. The bear made me do it.
So the bear made him do it. So basically the suspension is too hard. We've complained about Ari not making enough changes to their bikes when they make newer versions of them. In this case, they've at least moved forward a little bit because the engine has a slightly different tune. It has more torque by about 3 to 4 Nm. Power is also up, but that's just in less than a PS. It has a single exhaust now. So the overall tune would have had changed because of that as well. And the exhaust is a smaller, stubbier unit. It's only on one side. It's not in chrome, it's in black. So those kind of changes are there. Most importantly, he enjoyed the engine still. It feels, and this is an interesting thing to use for a motorcycle like this, it feels light on its feet.
Yes.
And the stance of it, the way you sit, automatically suggests as he did this action then it's a wide, commanding, and because you're sitting taller, higher, you also have a better view. And with that peppiness of the engine, you have a sense of being able to move quickly with little effort, and that's what makes it so enjoyable to use. And what Shumi said was that it would be a great motorcycle if our roads were California smooth, assuming California has great roads, of course. So the problem is not the bike, it's our roads. And if the roads were good, it would be a fantastic bike.
And when the roads get good, let's be optimistic. When the roads get good, you already have the bike for it.
Correct.
If you bought a Bear today.
And the only consideration in that scenario would be, do you want to spend $8,000 more than an Interceptor, a top spec Interceptor? Because the cheapest Bear is 8,000 rupees more than that, whereas the top spec Bear is another 29,000 bucks over that. So it's strangely more expensive than I would have expected, and that is a bit of a additional stumbling block over the...
That's because bears are endangered, bro.
Over the tires, over the suspension, and the brakes. That's one thing I missed out. The brakes also, while they have good power, they just don't have any feel. So the idea of riding the Bear hard makes it a little bit more disconnected because of these things.
Yeah, I'm going to be very, very categorical about it. You buy the Bear because you like how it looks, and you don't really have any intention of riding it too seriously. And you have wherewithal, which means when I get serious, then you will realize, oh man, I'm going to have to spend 30,000 rupees doing suspension. And then it won't pinch you too much. Then yes, go get the Bear. I love the feel of the bike. I love what it represents when the road is good. There's a twisting stretch on this section, which is about 12 kilometers long. And it's not a tight, hairpiny twisty. It goes up a plateau and down a plateau. So it's a lot of sweepers. And it's great tarmac. The Bear is in its element. You completely forget all the jittering and the shattering and all of this nonsense. It just works.
And the tires also worked in that scenario?
I trusted them today. I wish I didn't have to. But tires will wear out and then you'll get to something better. Tires I'm not worried about. You will not escape the tubes on this bike because this is still a tubeless setup. There is no tubeless spoke. Again, they're exporting tubeless spokes for the Bear. If you're well heeled, you should be able to source those rims via from Dubai or whatever and go back to a full tubeless setup if you prefer. But this is not a bike with an uncommon size. So you should be able to find far superior tires to this, which is why, to me, initial tires being good, bad, ugly is a hump. We can get over this hump. It's not a big deal.
It's okay. It's the familiarization period.
Yeah. So, did I not enjoy those 12 kilometers? I did. Absolutely, I did. Did I not enjoy the rural roads in the middle, which are still in great shape, but there's not much going on? Just sitting like that and looking out, I loved it. It's every single time the road started to get worse, where on many other bikes, I would be like, it's just 2 kilometers more, then I'll go back to a good stretch. I just keep going. Not on the Bear. I had to roll off, roll off, roll off, roll off. The other bikes that did this to me recently are the Shotgun Super Meteor.
So that's the familiar part of the Royal Enfield new motorcycle story, the rear suspension especially being a pain.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Bear 650. I was really surprised with all the interest in it. Must be the aesthetics.
Look, Royal Enfield enjoys a lot of interest. They are still very much an aspirational company. But you remember, I told you that there was a time when I was dealing with analysts who invest in two-wheeler stock. One of the questions that they consistently asked, and I think it has something to do with what Royal Enfield is up to right now, is when will the classic 350 story start to dissipate? Which is in the sense of, is it saturated? Do enough people have enough classic 350s for classic 350 not to be a desirable brand anymore? You know what I mean, right? It's a premium thing. So, but if everybody has the same premium thing, then is it a premium thing anymore? You know, so this question has been around for what, 10 years, 12 years now. And even today, from 2009 till today, this company's primary breadwinner remains the classic 350. And they've not really been able to break that out, right? If you think about the sales breakup today, let's call it 80,000 units. 40,000 are coming from the classic 350. And then roughly 10-ish each is the Meteor and the Bullet and the Himalayan and whatever, right? So these new motorcycles have come, and at least in India, where they're, what, 85-90% of the sales are, it's not like they're taking away large chunks of numbers from the big one and saying, no, our risk is spread out, right? So as a challenge, Royal Enfield is very leveraged on this classic 350, which is a platform that they can't really do much with. It's tied by its history, it's tied by geography, it's tied by expectation. Like the Activa 6G is also one. They've been trying to go to exports, but that number hasn't grown in any significance.
So what you're saying kind of sounds like they're throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Because I think in the premium market, it's not a bad strategy to increase the number of options, for sure. I would do it too. Right? If I were making premium motorcycles, I would want a large range of options so that you say, hey, so you want a premium motorcycle? Our motorcycles are super premium. Then you'd say, can I get an orange one? Of course, I have 3 different genres which are orange. And then you'd say, can I get one with gold wheels? Of course, we have 5 different genres with gold wheels, and I cater to your taste. If you think about it, that's why I think they have that Classic 350 customization program, which they started with the this year's, with the 2025 Classic 350, where you can go to a dealership and say, I want a specific paint job on my frame and detailing and customize. This is where they're headed. And to me, this super narrow niche, I don't think this is a problem. This is how all the premium markets, Europe, etc., this is how they work. It's not like Yamaha carries 3 bikes and 8 SKUs and says, this is our European business. There's like 600 SKUs in there, and what is the annual volume? Is nothing compared to what we sell. So I see the logic of it. I'm just saying, if your motorcycles all look great, but don't really work in the real world where 90% of your customers are.
Which was the Yamaha example was not a good one.
But if 90% of your customers are here and the suspension setups aren't working here, then I don't know what it achieves.
Cool.
Right? Now I'm wondering what other micro niches in the retro space are available.
Oh, surprise me. No, that's sarcasm. I don't know if I walk into a Royal Enfield showroom today, I'll spend a day just riding 650 bikes, get confused. I mean, ride all the 650 options that they have and leave in the evening saying, I don't know what I want.
Yeah.
Or just thinking, hey, do you have that color? I'm going to choose it on the basis of color.
Yeah, in fact, in some ways, if you think about it, the Himalayan and the 350s are actually very safe bets compared to the 650s now.
Yeah.
Right? Classic 350, Bullet 350, the new Goan Classic is a reasonably decent motorcycle. Meteor, I don't think you'll be in a situation where like, man, I regret this purchase. They all do their jobs really well, and they do some very obvious jobs. So, sorted. Himalayan, it's an obvious motorcycle. What it looks like is what it does. The entire 650 range, from the Interceptor suspension issues all the way out to these new 3 bikes, I'm not convinced, honestly. What?
Like the Bajaj thing just comes up in my head, like the iterations.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? If you're going to make a scrambler, suspension is like a bare necessity, right? Sorry, I had to. I had to. I had to.
Alright.
Yeah, but as far as the bear puns go, honestly, we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, we didn't. I think it was very well.
And we haven't even called it beer once in the entire thing, which I originally intended to do also.
I was actually going to say, they've gone with the gorilla. Now they've come with the bear. What other animals are they going to bring in? Tigers taken. Hippo. Hippo.
Hippo.
Hippo. It can happen, yeah. Some nice cruiser, Hippo.
Would you like to see a motorcycle called the Royal Enfield Hippo? What engine capacity would you like to see on the
They've
Hippo?
gone flea. They've gone in the other direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've gone into the insect world.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, we're
So,
going nowhere with this.
the flying flea is a figment of the imagination right now, right? Until it launches 2 years from now. So when it arrives finally, will it be the landed flea?
Landed flea.
Or will it continue to fly?
Shocking flea.
Because if you think about it, the original flying flea, which was paradropped, etc., during the World War and all, it didn't do much while it was floating through the air and actually flying, right? It started working after it landed.
Yeah.
That's when it had to do stuff, right?
Yeah, hopefully it's not shocking too much.
Okay, I think we're making too many jokes, but honestly, when I get upset about motorcycles, then I really feel heartbroken. And I was really upset. And I said this in the gorilla view also. When you can see that a motorcycle is just shit, then it is not a problem.
Yeah.
Because then the thing switches to saying, okay, man, this is just terrible. How do I make sure that people understand it's terrible?
Too many levers to move.
No, and then people understand it's terrible. So I have to make sure you understand it's terrible so that you don't end up buying one. And after that, if you still decide to buy one, no skin on my nose, I'll try to help you if I can, right? No issues. It's when you can see the potential of it. You can see, man, that could have been so great. And then you're like, oh.
But it's too familiar a story for me to feel anything anymore. I'm sorry. I've kind of disconnected on this one now.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to get a 2025 Classic 350, which has the LED headlight, but nothing else has changed. So we know it's going to be a good motorcycle.
See, joy.
And just to restore the faith of
instant joy.
But I actually do this. So I've been testing motorcycles endlessly for the last 2 years, right? Without a break. Like this has been the longest. I have continuously had a test motorcycle. And I use the great motorcycles to sort of reset my heart.
Yeah, it works. It
right?
Really does.
So the Himalayan, we have an Himalayan in the office. So the Himalayan, the Multistrada, my Multistrada. The 3 125cc motorcycles, I'm doing a story on them right now. I absolutely love how well they've turned out. If we had a Classic 350, the Classic 350 would be one of those bikes. And these motorcycles are just a reminder saying, this is what the pinnacle looks like. And it's not technical specification. It's the feeling pinnacle. Oh, good motorcycle.
And it's genuinely like when you ride a bad bike, drive a bad car, like bad, it does something to you on the inside and you need to cleanse. And that cleanse is typically done by a good vehicle. And you need it to kind of clean your palate out and reset.
Yeah, and I'm not traumatized by really terrible machines anymore. Like the W175, I rode it. I saw what it does well and I was like, what is this? No,
that's laughable.
So that kind of terrible, I'm happy to see because at least I'll get a laugh out of it, right?
Correct.
And great motorcycles, you laugh with them, which is, so laugh with, we are doing well. At least I'm doing well with the motorcycles. It's the stuff in the middle.
Half-hearted.
It's the stuff in the middle, the stuff that has heart, but it's not realized. Or it's like you're looking at this sonogram and you're like, when will the damn thing will be born, man?
Alrighty then.
Which is vaguely like hibernation, which brings us back to the bear, but I think we've had enough. So if I didn't answer anything specific that you have questions about, please do leave us a comment. And now I'm going to invite Kartikeya, my friend, the big bear in the office, to sign off.
Thank you.
Actually, you're not the big bear, you're the teddy bear in the office to sign off.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't believe we've gone an hour talking about a motorcycle, which is barely...
Yeah.
Anyways, nice. I think we're done. What are you riding next? I think that we can talk about because people said that, it's nice. Now we know what to look forward to.
We are waiting for the YesD Adventure updated one to come to us. We are waiting for the 42 FJ, which is a Java. We are waiting for...
What does FJ stand for?
You guys just leave me a comment with the exact name, but it is the founder's name or some important person in Java at that point of time kind of things. It's not a tribute to a Toyota or any such thing. just in case you're wondering.
Okay, forget.
And the F does not stand for what you're just thinking. Some Franchek or some kind of name like that. And the J does not stand for Joker either, just in case. This guy, I'm telling you. So these two motorcycles are on the horizon for us. I think the Ultraviolet Mac 2 will come back for testing soon.
Okay.
We did a first and it went back, and now it's going to come back. I think I wanted to test the Rizda S, because when I tested the 450S, I enjoyed it more than the 450Xs. So I want to see the base model of the Rizda, which we haven't got yet.
Okay.
River updated their scooter a little bit. Yeah, I'd like to have another go at it. I really like that scooter.
Is it available in Mumbai yet?
I think they're coming to Pune soon. There's 5 or 6 more dealerships in the south opening soon. Okay. And then by March, they said 20-25 more dealers or something like that. So they're a very cautious company. I like it.
Slow and steady. Yeah, okay.
I just wish they wouldn't focus on the south so much and spread themselves out geographically a little bit more. But they're doing what they can.
I think easier, no? For them to manage.
Yeah, but you know, it's the Ather issue where Ather went to the north and they said कि आपकी company India में कब आई और कहाँ से आई? You know, it's not something that you want. I don't think that you want that to be the challenge for you. You know, when you show up, right? Okay. Then people have been asking, what Brixton motorcycles?
Kya?
There's something called Brixton motorcycles that has happened.
Another one of the heritage from China.
I have no idea. I think it's an Austrian brand. Whether the motorcycles are Chinese or not, I don't know. But a lot of people who said, what about Brixton? I said, who is Brixton? Okay. So first we have to figure out who is Brixton, then get the motorcycles, then we'll do first rides if at all. We'll see.
Somebody was asking that in the comments about QJ or something like that. No,
which is Kinjai, which is a Chinese brand.
FC?
QJ, there are multiple. There's the QJ 500. And
no, is there an FC also? The CF.
CF is not in India as far as I know.
No?
I think they came and then that thing wound up and currently there are no CFs in
They were there for some time, I thought.
Yeah.
They're not there anymore.
Yeah. While you were in Zigwheels, I was in Pardip during that time. There were CFs. You got a CF for testing, and we couldn't get around to the story before the motorcycle disappeared or something. So I don't think CF is available in India at all.
Cool.
We haven't touched any of the Benellis and all of those brands either yet. Honestly, no hurry to yet. We want to be very, very sure about what we recommend to you, and just because it's available doesn't mean immediately there needs to be a lot of hoopla about it.
Cool. Well, I guess that stretched it long enough. Thank you so much for watching. This was our take of the Bear 650, the first impressions. And if you have any more questions, do hit us up in the comments. Once again, thank you so much for watching.